Das Babylon-Projekt war unsere einzige und letzte Hoffnung auf Frieden. Diese Hoffnung scheiterte. In dem Jahr, in dem der Krieg gegen die Schatten begann, wurde das Projekt zu etwas Größerem, zu unserer einzigen und letzten Hoffnung auf den Sieg. Es ist das Jahr 2260. Ort der Handlung, die Raumstation Babylon 5.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. It failed. But in the year of the Shadow War, it became something greater. Our last best hope for victory. The year is 2260. The place, Babylon 5.
Destination?
Babylon 5.
We introduced our characters in the first season. We began to sort of move things along and heat them up in the second season. Now the complication arises.
Jump gate activated. Here they come.
The shadows came out of the shadows, as it were.
We had offered the promise of a huge war between the Shadows and the Vorlons. I felt it was important to really pull the trigger on that and see that war brought to full fruition.
The story started to skew into another area, and things were changing.
As of this moment, Babylon 5 is seceding from the Earth Alliance.
At one point, we have to break away from the Earth Alliance and put our characters completely on their own, with no one to back them up, no one to support them.
There was no one that could write the whole through line of this if it wasn't Joe.
It became all one piece, one textured storyline. And as a result, it became very hard to say to someone else, pick up that thread. So I realized early on I had to write the whole thing myself. It wasn't what I planned to do, it wasn't what I intended to do, but it became necessary for story purposes.
The first time it's ever been done in television history. 22 episodes by the same writer. And it worked out beautifully.
You must be Delenn. I'm Anna Sheridan, John's wife.
I really went from A to Z in that season, from a love life to Return of the Dead Wife.
I always liked the dynamic of Sheridan and Delenn. The guy from Kansas, very Midwestern, with this very elegant female character. And I wanted to develop slowly that relationship until it began to come to fruition finally in the year 3.
I loved playing that whole romance with Bruce because he's such a wonderful man and a wonderful actor.
We became the Arthur and Guinevere of Babylon 5.
I actually think I've come up with a way to explain the organizational structure of Babylon 5 using the Ottoman Empire as a model.
Jason was an interesting audition.
He didn't take himself seriously. He took what he wanted to do seriously. And he played with people intellectually and was amused by things generally, unless he had to be in his bonnet about saving the universe, in which case he'd just go off and try and do it.
You know, you'd think I'd learn one of these days that I can't fix everything, but it never happens.
I don't believe in perfect characters. They're all flawed in Babylon 5, some more than others. And I wanted to investigate the possibility of having one of our characters become addicted to a drug of some kind.
And I just asked him, am I going to end up on the bathroom floor, kind of convulsing? He said, no, I think it's going to be a nice arc, and that we're going to try to be as realistic about it as possible, that you will come through. And I'm like, great, let's do it.
Your war is now my war. Alfred Bester was a complex character. Despite his mean-spiritedness, I can empathize with Mr. Bester. It was his great responsibility and duty to save the telepath community, and he would do almost anything for that.
Hey, Zach, how's it going? Fine. Hey, you missed all the excitement. Ambassador Sinclair was here.
Joe really caught into the idea of developing another person into security, particularly as he was thinking about where Jerry's character arc was going to go.
Jeff was kind of a fun addition. He kind of became like my right-hand man and my confidant.
I was a fan of the show before I was on the show, and I was a fan of the show while I was on the show. My childhood dream was to be an astronaut, and so I was living it out every time I went on the set.
Will you help me, Mr. Malden?
Of course, Ambassador. It was an amazing play from Warden to take out his girlfriend and to get Londo to come back and say, I need your help.
Babylon 4.
Babylon Square was the first half of the story seen from one side, and War Without End was the other side of the story seen from their point of view.
When you meet me again, it will be me, but it won't be me now. So you're not to say anything to me that might change the past. Do you understand?
Zathras understand. No, Zathras not understand, but Zathras do.
Nothing is put in arbitrarily. It all means something. And to take that first episode and then pay it off a full 2 years later by showing you the flip side of what happened was a great writing experiment.
You've done a good job looking after the place. I couldn't have wished for better.
And that was a really elegant way that Joe was able to bring back Commander Sinclair and Michael's character and give it, a really special send-off.
Come with me.
Where?
To Zahadu.
We often don't listen to the best advice we get.
If you go to Zahadu, you will die.
And Sheridan, knowing full well what this could mean to and for him, has to go anyway. And that, to me, is the definition of heroism. We know what the price is going to be, and we're still afraid of it, but we do it anyway.
Next stop, Zahadu. When I first got this, I started reading and I'm going, wow, this is incredible. Wait a minute. Is this my end?
What stands out the most for me from year 3 of Babylon 5, first our characters come to a point where they cannot back off anymore, where the lives have changed and the world's changed around them, and it will never be the same. It's the pivot point for the entire show. It was really a chance to show what I wanted to show in the first place, a big interstellar war on a scale never before attempted for television.
We've created Babylon 5 really out of the thin air, and that's what I think was so exciting about working on it.
Babylon 5's universe is a achievable future. I said, make the design look like something we can build right now, because in theory we could.
He really wanted kind of this teeming place that was an outpost, and a place that was unlike any kind of place we'd seen in science fiction television before.
It was realistic. People really lived in this place, and that's what we wanted to communicate.
When Babylon 5 initially started, it was decided, and with good reason, that we produce it away from the studio.
We were looking for a warehouse space because we knew that if we went on a lot somewhere that at the budget level our show was in first few seasons, we'd never be able to get through the whole season. And as it was, we barely got through the first season.
We acquired a large property in Sun Valley and built 3 stages.
I had 6 weeks from the time we found the stage to the time we were going to roll on the first episode. And so I had to build 12 standing sets and build 3 sound stages within this 60,000 square foot warehouse. And the reason for having 3 stages, we could be building on one, we could be painting and dressing another, and they could be shooting on the third one. So it was a big shell game.
One thing I wanted from the very beginning was a production designer who came from a theatrical background.
I knew that with a lot of techniques we'd used in the theater, we could come up with a lot of illusion. And Joe was very much behind this. Joe also had a theater background. John Copeland had a theater background.
One of the things that John and the entire art department brought to this production was this interchangeability and adaptability of being able to turn things inside out that they brought from their theater backgrounds.
I think that every set, with the exception maybe of the med bay, doubled as another set. The Zocalo would also become the central corridor. It would also become its own kind of down below, and in some scenes it would become like the core, you know, where we were actually having the reactors and stuff like that. The quarters would always double, so Ivanova and Sheridan would have the same quarters. Delenn and Londo shared the same quarters, completely different dressing. And this is one of the greatest things about art direction is, even though it's painted the same color, even though it in many cases has the same furniture, if you change the dressing, all of a sudden you have a whole new set. And I love that about that show. We would do that a lot. Joe was very interested, though, in keeping a specific definition between the different worlds.
I always tried to follow the rules of A, form follows function, and B, a culture informs its artifacts.
We asked him, for example, what are the Minbaris like? And he said, well, this is basically a dying race. And so he really wanted it to be based on sort of a crystal look, but almost like the crystal, all of the color had gone out of the crystals. The Centauri, however, had the appearance of sort of this Napoleonic, kind of world where it was very this imperialism. And we even kind of went that way with this kind of encrusted gold thrones and, sort of the relics of an imperial nation. And the Narn culture, he had said, well, they're sort of marsupials and they're sort of lizard-like. And they have had war on their planet for so long that they basically live underground in rocks. And it's a windswept planet and very sunburnt.
We didn't base it so much on the future and what we thought the future would be. We based it on what the race's aesthetic would be.
The basic process in creating a new set for Babylon 5 would start with the script.
I sat down with John and said, this is what I need to have in here. This is the basic minimum requirements for the action I have planned to take place. He would then go off and come up with 4 or 5 different designs. And we also had to then take those designs and say which one of these will work in the space that we have available to us.
From that point, I would talk to the decorator, and he would go on his journey.
I racked my brain to find unusual things, and when we ran out of unusual things that we could just pick up somewhere, we had to have them built.
And right away I would put together with some cardboard and some paper, I'd do a little sketch, and then I'd do a little white model. And this white model became an invaluable tool, and we literally had a white model for every set.
He would come back with the small models of those sets for one last check to make sure we were all on the same page. Then they get the building.
From that point, usually we're in such a quick schedule that I really never did much color information, and we would go over and I would pick some colors out, and there's this kind of very spongy kind of technique we use in the theater. It's called scumbling, and so most of the sets had scumbled walls, and what that gave the show was this kind of magnificent depth, because a lot of the walls became this sort of almost like painter's palette in the background that you could light these wonderful faces against. By the time we get to the 3rd season, we know there's going to be a big war, and it's going to be a shadow war. We didn't really have a place that would be considered like a war room. And this became a project that we started early in the season. So we started a very ambitious building plan, and we wanted it to be a beautiful set. We also wanted to evoke the idea of these kind of war rooms from many other movies, and raised the whole production design of the show up a notch. Finally, after 2.5 years, we kind of got to the point where we needed to be, where we could really manufacture a set that really had a signature Babylon 5 look. One of the things we did in season 3 was to redesign the Med Lab. The Med Lab had really been a set we inherited from the pilot, and we sort of cobbled it together in season 1. Frequently, we found in season 1 and 2, we would bring somebody in a gurney, and then they'd have to like prop them up and get them, we'd have to do really a cut, a really old-fashioned cheated cut, and get inside the operating room. So we really decided to have these wonderful doors built that were these guillotine doors that went up, and that way you could wheel the gurney in and all the way into the med lab. And I took that opportunity to kind of blow the med lab apart. There had been so many problems with the med lab from the beginning, and it was kind of defining what is future of medicine. And we knew that less would be more, and the less we showed, the better off we would be. This kind of central chamber really came into its own with these beautiful glass panel windows and this kind of wonderful way that we could extend the med lab if we needed it. And by the time we got the med lab done at the beginning of the third season, it really looked great. Unlike many shows where they have to be frozen in time, the show kind of grew with the characters, and the station grew with it, and things changed and over time, and I think that was great. The White Star was a spaceship that was to be unlike any other, and it was designed sort of by the Minbari and the Vorlons, and it was to be sort of the new ship of our alliance. Most of the Earth Force things were clunky, and many of the Minbari things, we really didn't see the interior of them. But this was a ship that was really much more like a traditional science fiction kind of interior. And it went through very many permutations, and the first time you see the White Star, you'll see that it looks very different from the next time you see it. We did a big redesign on it, and we got it to a point where it looks better, but it was really kind of trying to break our own rules even and trying to come up with something that doesn't look like anything else. There was no straight lines in it at all. It was all this kind of very streaming, kind of organic look to it. And it was a really interesting design problem and was probably the hardest thing that we did on the show. When we needed a costume designer for Babylon 5, Joe and John came to me and they said, "Do you have anybody?" And I said, "I have this great person," and her name was Anne Bruce.
The people of Babylon 5 and the alien races seemed familiar somehow, and so they would be more accessible. And I think that that's something we really achieved fairly well, is that the Minbaris come across as real, and the Centauri's come across as, flamboyant, but real. And there was less costumey about it as just the clothing of those particular worlds.
As we got toward year 3, I said to Anne, I need to move these characters into a different space with the costume as well as with the story. And she came back with various designs. What we came up with was very simple, very sleek, very elegant, but sold the idea of a renegade operation.
And Bruce and I developed this really wonderful palette for the show, which we kind of called Spicy Brights. And they were basically warm grays, warm tones, and certain kind of reds, certain lavenders, certain greens that were not really true colors. The only real true primers we used were when we had to do a red stripe or a green stripe, but there were these sort of secondary colors that became this kind of warm glow of the show.
We started with 12 sets. By the end of the first season, we could do over 100. By the end of the third season, we could do 365 sets.
We got to take our world and project it into the future and try to peek into other worlds. And I think for us, this was a great ride to be on. The significant thing for me was that with Anne Bruce and John Flynn and John Copeland and Joe, we created this world that doesn't look like any other show. I'm very proud of that, and also the fact that we did it in a collaborative method where it was really the sum of all the parts that made it really as good as it is.
This is Babylon 5 Security Chief Michael Garibaldi. This file contains all the information we currently have on the Shadows. The Shadows are a race of six-legged insectoid creatures standing just under 2 meters tall. We refer to them as the Shadows because their actual name is 10,000 letters long and impossible for humans to pronounce. Hardly anyone has ever actually seen a shadow, mainly because they use some kind of stealth technology that bends light waves, making them all but invisible. The Shadow homeworld is a barren planet called Zahadum, located on the rim of known space. According to Ambassador Delenn, the Shadows are one of the ancient races referred to as the First Ones. Most of those races left the galaxy long ago, but a few, like the Shadows and Vorlons, stayed behind. About every 1,000 years, the Shadows come out of hiding, and basically all hell breaks loose. For some reason, the Shadows seem to thrive on war and chaos. During the last Shadow War, it took the combined forces of the Vorlons and Minbari to defeat them. In fact, they would have lost the war if Station Babylon 4 hadn't popped out of the time stream to serve as a base of operations. The current problem with the Shadows flared up when a ship called the Icarus landed on Zahadum and woke them up. The Shadows must have been cranky, because they killed everyone on the Icarus who wouldn't serve them. The only person who agreed to this was a lowlife named Morden. He's been seen on the station several times and has had a number of dealings with Lando Malari. Security has been keeping a close watch on him. The warships that the Shadows use are tough. Tougher than just about anything I've ever seen. From what we've learned, the Shadows utilize several types of ships when attacking. First off, they send in a scout vessel to survey an area and make sure it's clear for the rest of their fleet. Then they strike. Typically leading the way are the organic fighters, which travel in numbers and swarm a target like angry bees. These ships are fast and pack one hell of a punch. Don't let their small size fool you. The Shadows' main vessels are their capital attack ships. These spidery-looking things are damn near impossible to destroy, and they're armed with an extremely powerful directed energy weapon. I've seen these things slice through ships' hulls like they were made of tinfoil. Some of the guys call them battle crabs. To make matters worse, all of the Shadows' ships have some sort of cloaking capability. They can phase in and out of hyperspace at will, making it easy for them to pull off hit-and-run attacks. Even the toughest opponent has to have a weak spot, and fortunately, the Shadows are no exception. The Shadows' vessels are based on organic technology and rely on living beings as central processing units. While this makes the ship's control systems fast and efficient, it also makes them vulnerable to interference from telepaths. In a recent encounter, we placed telepaths aboard each of our ships to disorient the Shadows. It seemed to work. Although we lost a lot of ships in the battle, we finally were able to give them a bloody nose and send them running. This discovery has given our side some hope in the war. I just hope it's not too little, too late.
On the next Babylon 5.
We need your help now.
The galaxy battles its most powerful enemy.
They're nearly invincible.
But Sheridan has a new secret weapon.
It is yours, Captain.
Let's take the offensive for a change.
Will it be strong enough?
We're not ready for this yet.
We're going to finish what we started.
Will they be smart enough?
It's suicide.
Punch it!
On the next
Hang on!
Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5. A mad bomber with a vengeance.
There's no telling where the next bombing's going to happen.
Terrorizes the station.
You'll probably die here.
Now, Sheridan must locate the killer.
Do whatever you have to do. But I want this stopped.
Before the next blast.
Do you understand fear?
On the next
Hit the deck!
Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
Their military is wiped out. They have nothing left.
Victorious in war.
They still have their pride.
An alien government exacts its final revenge.
Surrender to the Centauri.
Your government gave you orders to stay.
That government no longer exists.
Now, will a defeated ambassador surrender
You must give up.
or fight a desperate battle?
Centauri will kill you.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
I knew you would come.
A holy man, haunted by an evil from the past,
It said, death walks among you.
is about to discover his true identity.
They erased his memory. Brother Edward was the Black Rose killer.
Someone who wants him to remember.
What are they going to get out of it?
Revenge.
And they are about to complete their vendetta.
You didn't pay for what you did.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
They're old, powerful, and dangerous.
An ancient alien race is about to give Sheridan and his crew a new weapon against a deadly conspiracy on Earth.
This is the best chance we ever had. We have to take it.
But can they stop the conspiracy before it destroys the Earth as they know it forever?
Maybe it's time we got their attention.
Exciting, isn't it?
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
Make it stop!
When a deadly experimental drug is unleashed on the station,
A kind of telepathic weapon.
Sheridan is forced into a showdown with an old enemy.
I don't trust you as far as I can throw this station.
And there's only one way to stop him from completing his mission.
Defense grid, prepare to fire.
You won't do that. Are you sure of that, Mr. Bester?
Walter Koenig guest stars on the next Babylon 5. On an all-new Babylon 5, a bizarre alien life form
Doesn't conform to any known parasite.
threatens the crew.
The thing under his skin burrows into the spinal column and takes control of the neural system.
Now, can they survive the battle?
We will hurt you, if necessary.
For control of their minds.
They could take over the whole station.
On an all-new Babylon 5. On an all-new Babylon 5.
The ship is out of control, insane.
As evil aliens attack. A human conspiracy.
Bastards!
Earth has been sold out by our own people.
Hit Sheridan against Earth.
Our own ships will be sent in to destroy you.
Prepare to fire.
But his renegade mission could mean success.
I won't open fire on my own ship.
Or suicide.
Now!
On an all-new
Get us out of here!
Babylon 5. On an all-new Babylon 5.
The elite guard just opened fire on the Senate building. You're on your own.
The battle for Earth has begun.
They haven't hit us yet, but you can be sure that order will come soon.
Now, can Sheridan stop them from taking the station?
As of this moment, Babylon 5 belongs to the Night Watch.
We can't let this go on.
What are you going to do?
Whatever we have to.
I wish to join.
On an all-new Babylon 5. When the conspiracy of darkness takes control of the Earth,
None of us is safe.
the decision will be made
Launch fighters.
to surrender to the inevitable or to fight against all odds.
Stand by to attack.
For Babylon 5, that time is now.
As of this moment, Babylon 5 is seceding from the Earth Alliance.
Here they come.
Fire!
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5, Sheridan is targeted by pro-Earth terrorists.
In breaking away from Earth, we have begun a difficult and uncertain journey.
But more than just his life is on the line.
What do you want?
Put the station back under Earth control, or I'll kill the hostages.
No!
Could this be Sheridan's last stand?
Not on my station!
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
I have a surprise for you.
When Veer is set up for an arranged marriage.
Hey, it could be worse.
Absolutely yes.
He discovers that his bride-to-be is also known by another name.
Yatsa Shanka!
The Butcher of Narn.
I have been trained quite well.
This is one honeymoon you'll never forget.
I have something for you.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
Give us the sword, mister.
A distinguished guest visits the station.
I am Arthur, King of the Britons. No man takes Excalibur from me and lives.
But is he a real-life legend?
How did you get here?
You don't believe I am who I say I am.
Or an ominous illusion?
He's escaped.
Michael York guest stars.
Yield or die.
On Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't blow you out of the sky.
Bester's back.
We have a common enemy.
With information about a secret transport.
Seize the ship. We deprive them of some of their weapons capability.
But in a time of war,
Locking weapons.
can they trust an enemy?
Are you sure you don't know what's inside that ship?
Walter Koenig guest stars on the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5, as chances of winning the war grow dim,
None of us can stand up to those ships.
a desperate captain must search for help.
If we could just score one victory, that could be the break we need.
But will he find allies or enemies?
Whole worlds are being destroyed out there, and you do nothing.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
We are under attack! They're killing us!
A message from the future.
Our future.
A countdown to destruction.
8 days from now, we go straight to hell.
I won't let it happen.
But the only way to stop it is to go back in time.
What the hell is that?
And change the course of history.
Babylon 4. It must be done.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
My whole life has been leading to this.
They have journeyed through time to change the course of history.
This couldn't happen.
Now the past, present, and future are about to collide.
Maybe there's still a chance. This is the last hour of your life.
And the greatest secret of the galaxy will be revealed.
You are the one who will be.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
Sheridan is embarking upon a fool's mission.
There's something I need you to do.
They've been outgunned and outnumbered.
They tore him apart!
Now, their only hope for survival
It knows we're here.
is to take the battle deep inside their enemy's mind.
One's getting through.
If you're gonna do something, do it.
Now.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
You are the natural choice to take over as head of the Rangers.
Delenn is about to face a challenge for power
I am sworn to stop you.
that could ignite a civil war.
So you're looking for a non-Minbari to stop him?
He is one of the best of the warrior caste. He's very good at killing your people.
The only way you will get to her is through me.
Vengeance it shall be.
On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
I won't do it.
Yes, you will.
Enemies are ambushed.
You've just taken your final step.
He can be executed.
Allies are betrayed.
Take it from his mind.
No!
The Shadow War escalates.
This is as much about terror as it is about territory.
And Sheridan is caught in the crossfire.
No wonder you are cranky.
On the next
This isn't going to be easy. Nothing worthwhile ever is.
Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
I know it's a risk.
The battle you've been waiting for is here.
You've only got a 50-50 chance of getting back alive.
Well, who wants to live forever?
Two of the most powerful fleets in the galaxy
Break and attack.
are about to collide.
Hard to port! Fire!
The rumble is on. On the next Babylon 5. On the next Babylon 5.
You gave me every reason to believe she was dead.
She was the woman he loved.
It's time to learn the truth.
Now, she belongs to them.
All you have to do is come with me.
Where?
To Sahadul.
And if she completes her mission,
There's nowhere to run.
no one will survive. Melissa Gilbert guest stars on the next Babylon 5.